Hi, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 207th episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything important to us, you, the world, and nothing is off the table. This week, we're discussing why remote work is the future. Now, before we dive deep into the subject, a couple of things to go over. First, have you downloaded this episode on WokeNFree.com through the Podbean app? If not, please do, because that's the best way to show your support, plus how you join the conversation. If you have the app, then you can add your comments. Woohoo! Definitely make sure you do that. Now, of course, if you cannot download the app on whatever device that you listen to podcasts on for whatever reason, then make sure that you at least go to WokeNFree.com, go to the Listen tab, and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to follow and subscribe to the show on any of the outlets that we're on. So, for instance, you can do that for iTunes or TuneIn or Stitcher or Google Play. Obviously, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. It's a WokeNFree world, guys. So make sure you do that. Now, in addition to that, you can also go to WokeNFree.com and you can subscribe to the show via email so that every single week you'll get notifications of the new episodes, which is super cool because it's super easy to forward to your friends and family. That way you and your peeps are WokeNFree. So yay. Now on social media, you can always holler at us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And then lastly, if you have 90 seconds, yes, 90 seconds, we'd love a review of the show. For instance, we have tons of 5-star reviews on iTunes. It would be fun to get some more. Are you going to give us our next review? We think so. So make sure you do. With that, I'm going to kick it to you, Khalil.
And as you know, we would like to start our conversations with a little bit about ourselves. And last time we asked, would you rather have a pinball machine or a Pac-Man arcade machine for your home? This week we're asking, would you rather learn how to fly a helicopter or learn how to fly a plane?
More pointless information. Phenomenal.
Interesting.
So I would say since the loss of Kobe, I definitely am not super keen on anything with helicopters at this stage of my life. So I would have to go with plane for this answer then.
All right. That's understandable. And I actually agree with you, not for the same reasons, but I just think flying a plane is more practical because just think about it. In a zombie apocalypse, what are you more likely to really encounter? Are you going to find this helicopter on the runway or are you going to find these spare planes? You're going to find the planes. So wouldn't you want to know how to fly a plane so you can fly to some other continent? That's what I was thinking in terms of this question. So it tells a lot about the individual. Like, they choose a helicopter or a plane, and then it kind of gives you an idea, like, where would somebody want to work if they're working remotely? Would they want to work on a helicopter or would they want to work on an airplane? And for me, it's an airplane. So we got to ask the question about this episode, why is remote work the future?
So I would say, A, no one's working remotely on either of those things. So what you said makes no sense, but I'm going to ride right on past that one to address your question, which is kind of why is it the future? So personally, I would say as someone who has engaged in remote work, I think it's the future because I see personally more and more opportunities listed on various career job board ads that it is ad sites that it is definitely an increase in the opportunities available as well as the amount of industries that are opening up to this. Now, for some additional context, what I thought was interesting is in this Forbes article, and all links to articles can be found in the episode at WokeNFree.com, that they mention the following. So the percentage of workers permanently working from home is expected to double in 2021, which is this year. This was, I believe, like the end of 2020 kind of article. So that makes sense given with COVID and then just where our world is going. And then in addition to that, they mentioned the stat, which is by, a recent Gartner CFO survey revealed that over 2/3, so 74%, plan to permanently shift employees to remote work after the COVID-19 crisis ends. If it ever ends, but in theory, maybe it will. So that's that. And then, in the article, they also mentioned some companies who specifically are doing it. So, big time social media platforms, companies are doing it that we all happen to send messages on. So if you're curious to know who I'm referring to, definitely click on the link at WokeNFree.com. But in addition to that, I would say there's another article I found, Computer World, that said that according to a DICE 2021 survey of tech workers, the data shows that most tech professionals actually prefer remote and flexible work, and with very little support for working permanently in the office. And, so in the tech industry, it's definitely something that's favored. And then also, they went on to say that 29% of those workers actually want to be fully remote. So, I think people want it. I think employers are open to it, especially given the sensitivity needed for COVID. And I think that it's probably going to just continue to rise, because the more that people successfully work remotely and companies don't lose money, but will continue to hopefully make more money, then more and more employers will be open to it, as well as see the benefit of it. And so then there's a business, justification for this. So then it is not just something they're open to, but something that they legitimately endorse and support and, build out. So those are my thoughts there.
Remote working, it saves time and money as long as you're set up for it. So the software, as we know, is out there to allow a majority of people to work from home. The real question is, do you touch physical products? Is there something in the office that you can't do at home? If there is, then I understand you might need to physically be at work, but otherwise, if there's nothing specific to the office that keeps you tied there, then remote working is a good thing. It saves a lot of things. There's no point to really do it, to be honest. So, that leads me to the next question, or what are the pros and cons to remote working?
Okay, well then, just to your point though, then that means that there's always going to be a portion of our workforce that cannot be remote, which is something.
Well, until robots take over, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I would concur with that statement. Yeah. So to delineate pros and cons, I think they go as the following. So you're going to have, according to Proof Hub, that you're going to have higher productivity, you're going to have a better work-life balance, healthier lifestyle, and more savings and less carbon footprint if you have remote workers. And then from a con side, you're going to have communication gaps, difficulty staying motivated. Again, this is from this article. You can click on the link when you want, at WokeNFree.com to read more. Lack of social motivation, which is interesting. Management challenges, interesting. And then I would also add some data protection and vulnerability issues to think about from a con side.
All right. I only like the last con that you added. I don't like any of the other ones. Those stuff seems fake to me. I just
You don't see the validation for them, or you just disagree with them?
Yeah, I just disagree with them.
Okay.
Those things could be argued either way. You could be at work and the same things can happen. You can not be at work, and that to me is that's
arguable.
They just listed that, but that's not necessarily the case for everybody. I don't believe it.
I agree.
But the last point you make is definitely a true point. It's something to think about. And I would list the pros as there's no commute time, because people are commuting to work. They're wasting hours of their day commuting. And when you work from home, you don't do that. Second pro is you can use your own electronics, so that saves the company's money. They don't have to buy you a phone or PC or
if they operate
monitor or something else. They can, they might allow you to use your own electronics. That's a benefit. To me, there's less distractions, because when you're at work, there's more people that can just come up to your desk and say, hey, let's have a chat. Let's just sit down and we're going to throw away a couple hours. That definitely happens to a lot of people, because that social interaction thing happens, and people aren't socially interacting about work. They're socially interacting about what's going on in their life at home. They want to try to talk about stuff that is not work related. And that's a distraction. And I talk to a lot of people where they're like, man, I can't get anything done at work, so I got to stay later just to get stuff done, because now people are not there to bother me. So that's definitely an issue.
Yeah.
There's less pollution from commuting.
Yep.
So you mentioned that with the carbon footprint. I think that when you're at home, there's better lunches, because you can have all the access to your food that's at home. You have a bigger fridge than anything that they can have at your job. So
healthier eating or more eating?
It's just better lunches, not more better. It's not more healthy. It's just literally whatever you want to eat, you can literally eat at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can say, I have this nice big stack of food that I eat, but I can't store it in the fridge at work because it's too small or my lunchbox too tiny. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You have all of your food at your disposal when you're at home. Second thing is that you can wear comfortable clothes, so you can wear your pajamas and be nice and comfy.
As long as you don't require certain presentation requirements for your job.
Well, I would just say as long as you don't need to stand up.
Yeah.
Because you can wear pajama bottoms.
And you don't mistakenly stand up when you should.
Yeah, you could wear pajama bottoms. I mean, yeah, you have a better chance of that. And then, to me, I mean, I know you mentioned data protection, but I would also mention that you can actually have more privacy at home because depending on how your office is set up, less people can come by your place and say, "Hey, what's going on there?" You can, if you have an actual office, you can close your doors and have privacy. Compared to when you're at work, you have a cubicle. Anybody can walk by and see what you're doing.
If you're in a cubicle, not an office,
yeah. So, and that's, let's be honest, most people don't have an office. Most people don't have an office with a closing door that has privacy. But when you're at home, you do have it. I mean, you sometimes have an option for that. So that's a pro.
That's true.
Now, the cons are that you have to rely on coworkers to respond to instant messaging or email, because if they don't, then you're kind of just like left out in Hawk. If you actually needed to talk to them, there's no physical interaction to get, in touch with them, which is my next point. There's literally no physical interactions with the coworkers. You can't just walk up to their desk and say, "Hey, I need this now." That doesn't happen. But another pro, I mean, not a pro, but sometimes you'll go to their desk and they're not there, so it doesn't even matter, right? You can keep going and they're never even actually at their desk. So the physical interaction could not be actually, that could not help you depending on who it is. Another con is it's an unideal office space at home, so if you don't actually have any area at home to work. As long as
they didn't intentionally curate it, yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah, what curate? What do you mean?
Meaning, like, so if someone took the time to create a defined space, then it's not a con. But you're saying if you just kind of mishmash and just find a space on your couch to work, then.
Well, I'm saying it's a con because some people don't have a space at home to work.
Meaning they literally, like
literally, what if I'm in a studio? It's not
gotcha.
really that great for me to work at home.
Or you have roommates and it's a situation.
There's definitely spaces at home where it's not meant for working at home.
Yeah, gotcha.
People are in those living situations. And then another con is that there's less time to listen to WokeNFree on your commutes.
That's hilarious. But
that's really bad. I mean, when you commute,
that's true.
You always listen to WokeNFree, but now you're not commuting. What are you going to listen to?
True, but
when are you going to listen to WokeNFree now? When do you do it?
In between meetings or when they're checking their email, they could listen to an episode. So there's still opportunities. All right. So now that we've gone through pros and cons, the next question I think that comes to mind is, what would you say are best practices when it comes to making remote work better?
I think some of the best practices are just having a personal office space that is undisturbed, someplace where you can close doors is ideal because then you won't get all those extraterrestrial disturbances that often occur because aliens can come by anytime and you don't want them to get on your Zoom call or whatever.
Yep.
So just, make sure you can close your doors because that's helpful.
That's important.
You want to be able to disclose your schedule so people kind of know that you're available during which times. I think that's a nice thing. This is not for the employee, but I think that employers should supplement internet for them because, hey, they're working at home. You can pay for some broadband internet. That internet bill costs some money. So, hey, can you help us out there because you want some fast speed
internet,
conference calls and stuff? So hey, help supplement the internet a little bit. That'll be nice.
That makes sense.
And then I also think employers should schedule remote networking events. So something to kind of create a bond but this one's funny though, because I think employers should do this in general, but I don't think all of them do it, but it's a good thing to kind of get the teammates, people that are working.
Culture bonding,
involved in each other's kind of, not personalized, but just at least to know each other better because then you might care for them more and you're going to work better together. So it's, when you're remote, it's harder to do that. So I think you should schedule events to just hang out and do stuff. So I think I think the
only trick there is just at what time, right? So I have found
that makes it tough.
That employees sometimes will resent having to do those, what's that called? after hours after hours hanging out situation, especially when they're virtual, because if it's done on the employee's time, they feel kind of salty about that because it's like they don't want to take their personal time to do a work thing, right?
It needs to be a day off kind of thing.
But then to do it during a work production time, then that's a loss of production hours. So it can be actually very tricky to try to
But it can be super productive if you can get everybody to like each other and be like interested in helping each other.
It's an investment.
It can be really crazy because they would say,
yeah,
even when these people on their off time, they're still considerate of their other, their coworkers.
I think it's worth it. I think
it's worth it. Just give them a day off and just say, hey, we're gonna let you guys get to know each other. And
I mean, I don't necessarily know if a day off is necessary, but what I would say is,
but it's not really off. It's on, but you're interacting with coworkers, but not on. We're not like technically like generating revenue. Let's say that.
So it's like productive in a different way. It's not productive for their typical workday, but it's productive from a team culture building perspective. Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely. And the last thing is, I think you should offer employees additional benefits from working remotely, like fantasy football leagues.
That's hilarious, actually.
That, like, doing that kind of, that's kind of a bonding experience thing too, but you should do that.
I wouldn't even know what to do with that, but I think it sounds fabulous.
It's good to like to do that. And you can do like checker nights or book reading clubs. Stuff.
Well, now if you're telling me book clubs, I'm all about that. Fantasy football league.
Yeah, so you love that, choosing the players.
My strong suit but I would say I would definitely be open to it. I think especially if it's subsidized.
You're more of you're fantasy baseball. I understand. We can do that too.
You're really full of it. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So here are my thoughts from having, like I said, experience. We both have experience being remote workers. My tips would be, regardless of your living space, if you actually plan to have remote in your future as a worker, then you need to create and curate a dedicated workstation for yourself in your home. So even if you're in a studio, get a desk, make sure the desk has connect your computer, whatever, like create your safe space to be able to work effectively, productively, and happily. And so that would be that. I would also say create a schedule for you and what works well for you and your family needs, right? For you to accomplish what you need to do at the job, but also you have other goals because nothing in life exists in a silo. So you have health goals that you're trying to reach on a daily basis. You have wellness goals. You have spiritual goals. You have fitness goals. So really try to map out what a successful day looks like for you. Meaning if you need to go running at 5 and you need to drink water every once an hour, do you have that alarm set? Are you positioned so you're not too far from the bathroom? Really like plan and really take the time to create a schedule where you're effective both in your job but as a person as well. I would say taking breaks is for health and mental sanity is a must. Yes, you have to be productive. Yes, it depends on the type of worker are you. Are you hourly or salary? You have to keep that in mind because those different distinctions determine technically how many breaks you are allowed during the day. But if you happen to be a salaried employee, then you know that you have a little bit more flexibility typically. And then those are perfect opportunities to say for those people who say, oh, I don't have time to exercise. So if you have 2 15-minute breaks, then those are 2 15-minute breaks that you can use to walk. Those are 2 15-minute breaks you can run, right? Like, so really like kind of calling a spade and really making sure you're taking care of yourself. Now, I would also recommend focusing on your daily why. I think it can get really muddled when you work from home. Then there's no distinction between home and work because it's all melded and melted together. And so there's a good and a bad to that. In the fact that you don't have to leave anywhere, that means that do you ever really shut off work? And do you ever really feel comfortable in your home again now that there's no distinction? So it's really important for you to be mindful about your work notifications to make sure that you don't just work an extra hour or so because you happen to be home and you're like, well, I don't have to go anywhere, so I can work till 7. If that's not what you want to do, then you shouldn't do that. So being really focused on your why as to like, why are you doing remote work? Why do you have this job? Why do you do what you do? And what do you need to accomplish for the day? And really setting in clear boundaries for yourself and for your job. Also making sure, to your point, checking in with your team, whether you do that that through activities, whether you do that through the messaging, whether you do that through how you connect with each other. So just that, those typically hopefully should be managed by your manager. But if not, you can definitely feel free to take the initiative to build that bond so that the people you work with are actually enjoyable for you and not just like a torture fest. Also be honest with yourself and your manager. I find a lot of times people will feel more stressed out by remote work and they don't say anything. And then it creates this kind of burnout situation for that employee, which is really sad and I think very avoidable. And then also make sure you have clear KPIs, key performance indicators, meaning you have a clear understanding of what your targets are in your role, in your job, what your responsibilities are, because that way you can clearly check them off on a quarterly basis or whatever your assessments are and making sure that you are sticking to what needs to happen and you're not just like, oh wow, 3 months passed. Did I really do anything? Right? That's not a healthy place to be personally or professionally.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot to take in. I hope some of that can stick around. I don't know.
It was a lot, but those are, I find for me, the things that were critical for me at least. And it's a work in progress, you know?
All right. I mean, that's what's cool about podcasts is you can rewind and listen to it as many times as you want.
Are you suggesting I bored out of you and everyone listening?
No, I'm just saying this is the kind of content where you need to go back and kind of like take it in again. Yeah, you can't just listen to it one time through because there was a lot being spoken there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff there. You gotta rewind it and maybe you can put it on like half speed.
Nice.
You download the Podbean app.
I said it in a New York minute, eh?
No, I'm just saying download the Podbean app and then you can slow it down to your preferred speed.
Okay.
Or you can use your chosen podcast
I hope they
app
speed
that
it
does
up.
that. No, I hope you don't because then you're going to have to listen to it a million times.
I like it. I like the way we're going.
I mean, I don't know. You can do a million times. It's up to you. But I mean, you're not commuting if you're working from home. So I just hope you just have the time to do that. That's all I'm saying.
They got these bathroom breaks because they're drinking that gallon of water.
Yeah, but on the bathroom breaks, they're figuring out how they can support WokeNFree. So I don't know if they listening to it. They're like, how can we help you guys out?
So you just straight talking.
No, I'm just saying. There's like, hey, we're gonna go onto your Instagram. We're gonna go onto your Twitter. We're going to retweet everything you say.
Okay.
No, on their bathroom breaks, that's all that WokeNFree listeners do. They say, can we retweet WokeNFree? Well, that's what they wonder.
Yes.
What can we do in terms of that?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario? It's scenario time, guys. Scenario 1. Batadia was actually able to close more sales during her temporary work from home status than when she needed to travel into the office 5 days a week. Should her employer force her to come back to work to earn less money for the company? Or are they better off letting her grow the company business from home?
Interesting. So how much more? Was it like a dramatic amount or was it just like a slight amount?
Well, I mean, that's all relative, right? I mean, I could tell you 20% or 10%, but... Okay. Well, I could tell you a dollar amount, but does it matter? I mean,
well, for my answer, so for my answer, I would say it's
either way, she was better, right?
So for what I would suggest is that she present to her manager the opportunity for her to continue to work remotely if she is more profitable for the company remotely. However, I was going to say the difference, like the delineation and how much more successful might determine how much pushback she gets from that pushing, right? So for instance, if she only earned 10% more, then is that compelling enough for a company who's they feel their culture is best served by having everyone in? 10% differential is not compelling enough to keep her there. So they could tell her, hey, you're welcome to stay home and you can work for someone else that way. Or if she made 50% more income, then I would say it's a stronger argument for her to be able to convince her manager to be able to continue to work remotely. But I would say, based on the numbers, whether it's $1 more or $100,000 more, she should try to push to work remotely because it's going to save money and time and the environment.
But to the company, specifically the company, should they just decide, let's let her work from home because she's doing better?
I would say the answer to that will be contingent on the amount, to be honest. Because like I said, if it's only $1, no. As a company, that's not compelling enough.
All right. So for me, if she's making more from home, definitely let her work from home. I don't care if it's $1. I don't care if it's a penny.
Interesting.
She needs to work from home and make that more money because that to me is crazy. Why do we want to spend money to make less money? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because you also have to think about the whole culture, though. It's not just one person, though.
I mean, yeah, you could say that, but I'm just looking at it for this specific person.
I know. I'm just
she's earning us. Do that, though. She's earning us more. I know that they can do that, but I'm saying if you're earning more money when someone's working from home and you don't have to pay all this like overhead to have the person in the office, why would you do it?
Because they still are paying because they already are in a 3-year lease, so the space is already there. So
you can use it for something else. I mean, you can adapt to that.
I know, but that's
because the key is if she was making the same amount of money, then I understand. It's like, well, we could have her and at least our money's work. But if she's making more, I don't want to make less. Like, I mean, that's crazy
because
to me.
They've already, like I said, they're already probably in the lease for the building for the utilities,
and then she makes like I don't know what the number is. She makes 20 times more.
And what if 80% of the workforce is coming back? And so
they don't have to come back because they can all make 20 times more at home.
So if that's the case, like I said, if it's predominantly more people are successful, then yes, I think the employer easily sees the yes here. But
and you know
if
people
it's
do
minimal,
too.
I feel like employers are like no.
Realistically, in this case, depending on how much she's making, they would let her work from home because that happens. That happened even before the pandemic. There's people that worked better from home, and they let them work from home because they're like, "You're doing really great there. We don't need you in the office."
I know, but I know that there are
that's the
employers
thing.
Who feel like because the problem is you can create resentment with employees who are coming in. Yeah. So that's a balancing act because it's either because it's too hard.
Let everybody work from home as long as you're doing good. Otherwise, hey, you got to come here and do whatever.
But then again, to your point, what about the people who have to touch things, right? So for people
and you always have to come in. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
And then they're going to feel salty about the people.
No, they can't because what they want to they're going to program the robot to do their job. Are they going to build it for us? They're going to buy the motors and everything.
Either way, even though it's illogical for certain people to be salty and have an attitude about it, they do. And so that employers are it's a work culture is a lot. It's a really interesting microcosm of people and energy, and so there's a lot that has to be balanced.
But those people that actually are physical and doing stuff, you need to come. I mean, if you got to come in because otherwise, if you weren't coming in, you got to decide how that virtually is working. Are you virtually programming something to do your job? If you're not, then you need to come in and touch it. I mean, you makes sense. You need to have an alternative. You can't just say, well,
I want to,
I mean, I'd like to work from home. I just don't know how it's actually feasible. How am I going to flip that burger? I don't know. I mean, you can't do that. How am I going to clean that toilet? How are you going to do it? You can't do it.
You're not being condescending at all.
All right. So, I mean, I can say something else. How are you going to go? All right. I'll change it. How are you going to go and you're going to repair the antenna
or something?
No, repair the mobile antenna. Yeah. I mean, you can't do that from home. There's stuff like that.
Yeah, without some type of device supporting you.
That doesn't happen. Yeah, people are going up in the, in bad weather. They got to repair things like trees fall down, power lines go down.
It's a mess.
Who's putting those back up?
We live at that. Well,
See,
that's what that was so interesting.
That
our world is very much very physical, but then there's also so much of our world that is so digital now. So it's so interesting now.
There's a lot of work that's like you don't need to be in the office.
I know.
You're making calls, like really.
But
you're talking on the phone. It doesn't make any sense.
Culture though,
don't touch anything.
People are so used to, and we're so conditioned to it, where it's like, can we do that? Can we do this hybrid? Can we do this split? It's an interesting conversation.
You don't even need a hybrid if you're not, like I said, if you're not touching anything product. You can
just stay,
then you can be at home and you can do everything from home because you can just talk to people. But you also know that there's
concerns from an employer perspective of, are you going to be home and are you going to work or are you going to
we didn't talk about that cons,
Nickelodeon, right?
Yeah, we didn't talk about that con, but it's true con is how productive is the employee at home. It's a question,
and that's going to be an ongoing question as we see more and more.
So what I bring up is, I mean, I'm not going to call anybody out specifically,
people,
but all I'll say is that when you go into work, there's people that get nothing done. There's people that sleep on the job, and people that don't do any work and just communicate to people for hours and hours.
The same type of behavior that employers get concerned about for remote workers, they fail to realize is happening.
It's happening on the site,
which is even more upsetting if you think about that.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, they'll be on the site.
Clients come in on the site and see that behavior or witness that behavior. So
that's what's funny. People don't. Yeah. That's the first thing is employers don't realize what is going on site.
Correct.
If they realize that, they'd be like, oh well, you can work from home because it's the same thing.
Yeah, if you're going to
watch Nickelodeon,
you're going to watch Nickelodeon.
Or if you're going to sleep, you're going to sleep. Literally, people sleep on the job. People go and they ride their boats. They do different stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people do a lot of different things. It's a matter of
you can't just say because you're working from
sure.
home you're unproductive. That's not
Correct.
a true statement.
It is not.
You can be working on site and be more unproductive.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
The focus
it's not
point
a fair thing.
is not like how it should be how engaged is your employee, right? Because someone who's really engaged is not likely to go and want to sleep or likely to be like, I'm just going to watch cartoons with my kid all day. That's if you really like your job or you really like the work you're doing, you're going to want to do your work. So it's really the focal point should be, how do I make sure my employee is engaged, likes their job, is feeling motivated, has a career pathing future, as well as feels compensated for the work they're doing too. Because also employers fail to realize that they want a lot for not a lot of pay. And so it's really hard to get the best out of people when you refuse to give them the best offering for their role. So again, it's a lot of management and nuancing when it comes to making sure employees are feeling supported in the role.
To me, I mean, the only thing I'd be concerned about as an employer is, did you get the job done? I don't really care about anything else. You could have been like snoring the whole time, but then you complete the job to some crazy satisfaction that I didn't even imagine possible. I don't care. Good. You're a really good worker. I don't care how you got it done.
To the only way to be able to make that assessment is if you have those clear KPIs, right?
Well,
what does the person need to do for you to be able to check that box off?
You do need that. Yeah, you do.
But a lot of managers fail to even set that in place with people. They're just like these kind of lofty goals instead of saying, hey, did you pitch 50 people? Did you actual specific metrics?
See, if you make it
that
just
is yes or no.
You write down these check boxes and you check them off. Oh, you didn't check this. Well, I see. It wasn't that.
Exactly.
You didn't meet my expectation. Then that makes it easier. You can understand where they missed out on.
A lot of clarity when it comes to management.
Scenario 2. Celeste was working from home for 23 months when her job told her she needs to transition to working on site starting next week. Do you think Celeste should be jaded about the new policy, or should she just work on site without any protests?
Interesting. So this is, I think, a question that speaks to understanding, what makes an employee happy, but then also the transparency between employers and employees. And so I would say this suggestion, Celeste probably got used to working from home for 23 months. That's quite a long time to do that, to then just be told you have to go remote to non-remote. So she probably would have some pushback, and I think reasonably so. And she needs to have a clear understanding from her manager why she no longer is allowed to work remotely. What is the new level of expectation or responsibilities and or KPIs that need to be accomplished on site? Do they differ than what she was doing remotely? And would she in the future ever have the opportunity to have still some remote working opportunities? Just because, again, when you do something for 23 months, that's really hard to take that away from someone. I think still saying maybe if you want to work remotely once a month because of, whatever, that would probably be something that this person would appreciate. But I think the biggest thing is why. Why would you go from remote for such a long time to not? So I would say not jaded per se, but needs clarity, needs a more understanding.
Okay. So I would think that she should be jaded about this situation because it's almost like being hit with a football in the face when you're going for the touchdown.
Nice.
You're like, I'm about to get the win, but then somebody just smashes me in the face like that. That's very surprising.
Very visual. Okay.
Yeah, it's a surprising event, and it's not. You would say it's uncalled for.
Okay.
Yeah, you would say that was from left field. I thought that's a different sport. What's going on here?
Okay.
I'm playing one thing and you're just hitting me in a different direction. I think it's okay for her to be jaded because they should at least have given you some kind of warning and said, the next month we're going to go back to what you used to be doing.
Gotcha.
Don't just drop it on somebody. I don't know. To me, that's just wrong to drop something on that about somebody, especially when it's uncalled for. We don't know the situation here, but to be able to work from home for that long would make me think wow, if you let her work from home that long, maybe it isn't such required to be on site, but
I don't know.
I don't know. That just seems weird to me.
Devil's advocate.
To then say, hey, you have to come in now because this is what we require. We don't care. We're not going to analyze your situation.
I think that, yes, every employee's work situation is different. And I think a good manager is someone who takes the time to look at it and not just put everyone in the same box because not everyone fits in the same box. However, there is a little bit of entitlement, I think, with people when they're like, hey, I should was that stated in your employment documentation papers when you got hired? Is an employer required to give you notice of shift changes? And if so, how much notice, right? So this idea of they needed to, but did they? Because was that the original agreement you signed on? If it isn't, then you can't say anyone is in breach of anything, right?
No, there's no breach, but that's messed up because the animals are used to you coming home or being home all the time, and then you leave and you're leaving them sad. Your dog's gonna look at you with puppy eyes.
That's a non-business justification or even consideration.
Your cat's gonna meow at you. It's what's going on here?
And the businesses don't care.
The businesses don't care that the cat's gonna keep crying and say, "Hey, where's my person?" The
only business who cares is the business in cats who somehow is touching this concern, but otherwise.
You're telling me businesses don't care about cats crying all the time?
Cat businesses do.
Oh wow! That's you're talking about some revelation stuff. I got to write this down. This is crazy.
I'm just saying that we have to remember that a business has a specific purpose of why they're in business, right? To make money, and so everything. So that's an engine, right? And that engine
that's
doesn't
all
stop.
fine.
And so everything is feeding that engine. And so if we're changing workflows and work structures, how is it benefiting the engine? This isn't personal. This is business.
Yeah, but as long as it's not impeding the engine, then who cares? It's like,
but that's
if I'm oiling up the engine, then it's great. If the engine's running faster, I'm giving it more gas, that's great. But if I just say, you know what, the engine's used to having this old type of gas that actually slows it down. Let's go back to that because, the new gas, it's good. It gets more power, but we're used to the old gas where it's a little bit slower and we understand it. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't.
Why go to that old stuff? Try the new stuff, and the new stuff is working. It's because it's kind of like, if you put it in the place and it's working, you're making more money.
Yeah.
To go back to the old way is kind of like, hey, why are you doing that? Shouldn't you try to transition to this new way?
It's because I think it's really hard for businesses to wrap around their minds this idea that hey, what if they have 12 facilities across the country and now out of all of those facilities, 70% of them of their workers want to work from home? Well, what are we doing with all those leases? What are we doing with all those utilities?
Well, just
eating those costs for kicks and giggle?
It'd be the thing we talked about in another episode where you're just kind of I forgot what it is.
You're going to have to convert the space into something else. Yeah.
It's a thing where you pay for the office space and use it as you need it kind of thing.
Yeah, but again...
I forgot what they call that. The co-working spaces? Is that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a lot of...
It's great because guess what? Because it's all right, I have this space, I paid for a lease, but I'm going to sublet it kind of thing and let it be a co-working space.
But again, where are you storing your private documentation? Because again, if you let strangers in,
well, you shouldn't be...
privacy.
I mean, you need to be doing that. That all has to be online. You need to go to a paperless business. And a lot of businesses are doing paperless now. That's true. Because that's crazy to be in the paper business right now. You gotta be careful.
Absolutely.
But we're not Dunder Mifflin. Let's get this together.
Correct. This is not The Office. But
exactly.
There's just a lot of consideration. So I understand. Listen, as someone who works remotely, I love it, but I totally see the other side of the shoe, which is this, how do we get there? Right? Because it's easy to say, let's just get there. But you're talking about changing the work structure of how many since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, it's a lot of recall.
Yeah, certain businesses it's going to be hard for. If you
manufacturing,
but
food,
even if you're in a trucking company,
beverages.
The trucking companies, they're not ready to replace their workers with work from home truckers.
All those truckers have to be driven. Those trucks,
they have to actually go out to work and work. They can't just sit at home and say, "I'm going to drive this truck with this remote controller."
Yeah, it's not like a video game now. That does this.
So, like I said, if you're touching product, you need to be in the office. But if you're not, there is actually better ways to do it. And I should add one other, there's a con that I didn't think of, but if you're in a super rural area in US, you may not have the internet bandwidth to actually work from home.
Exactly.
So that's another issue. You might be somewhere where internet is not a real thing. Exactly. You have dial-up speeds. And then you can't work from home. I mean, that's crazy.
And then that's a sad reason to not be able to do. But because it's still a real reason.
We don't have broadband everywhere,
There you go.
So that's another con. Scenario 3. Ephraim noticed that his workers were able to move more products when they came into the office compared to when they were out of the office. Mm-hmm. Can he conclude that working from home is less productive than working in the office?
Okay, so when employees, they're more successful when his workers are more successful when they're out of the office than in the office, right?
No, they were more productive when they actually came into the office compared
than when they were working remotely. So again, then that's like another one of those reasons where for some companies or for some industries, people seem to work better in person, that old school method of working, and so you have to, again, look at the numbers, look at the costs associated, look at the employees themselves and say what makes the most sense for the business and for the employees. And if it looks like it's lying with the old school way, then you have to go with the old school way, because at the end of the day, we have to make money and we have to make sure the business continues and the employees are keeping that engine moving, as well as, making sure that the employees feel satisfied to some degree as well. So,
all right. So this situation's funny because in my mind, I feel like it's kind of like a trick question. It's like, yeah, all that might be true, but guess what? When they're working from home, maybe they don't have the right utilities. Like we were saying, maybe they don't have a fast internet. Maybe they don't have a way to communicate with each other over conferencing calls that they need to. So I think it's the technology that's the issue there. I don't think it's actually the working from home or working in the office.
Okay.
I just think the tech's the issue there. So we need to look at this and say, well, why are you making less money when you're at home? It must be the technology. So to me, I wouldn't say you conclude, work from office, make more money. Yeah, let's keep doing that. That's not the future. That's not really what's happening. Your tech, it just blows. That's what I'm going to say.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's a really interesting way to end that, but I think that there was definitely a lot that we discussed here. It looks like we're at that time again. Actually, it's coming to the end of our 207th episode of
WokeNFree.
What were we discussing? Why is remote work the future? Now, what do they need to do, Khalil?
Well, what they could do, and what they always do, is come back next week for the new WokeNFree Wednesday episode. And they know to follow us on social media to follow along the conversation. And they got to make sure to tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
Awesome. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, submit a topic for an upcoming episode on our Contact Us page at WokeNFree.com. That's WokeNFree.com. For social media, always find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And then again, collaboration, sponsorships, easily find us on our Contact Us page at WokeNFree.com.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do share the episode and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokeNFree Wednesdays. Remember, WokeNFree is more than a podcast, it is a way of life. Until next time.